So I, 51 male, have 2 children, a daughter, 17, and a son, 19. My wife, 49 female, also has a daughter, 18, and a son, 16, from a previous marriage. My wife and I have been married for 9 years and have been together for 10. My ex-wife and I are on good terms. Even though we are not together and are technically not a family anymore, we still do everything as a family. I have a lot of respect for my ex-wife and still love her as the mother of my children. My ex-wife is a very wealthy woman. She comes from a wealthy family. She is also a lawyer and earns well. My ex-wife provides our children with anything they want. My kids have everything they've ever wanted. She especially buys my daughter expensive purses and clothing. I would personally never buy my daughter an $8,000 bag, but if their mom wants to do that, she can do as she pleases. My daughter is turning 18 on August 23rd. She wants a new car for her birthday. It just so happens to be a Mercedes. I couldn't contribute half of the cost of the vehicle, but I contributed a third. My daughter knows she's getting a Mercedes for her birthday and told my stepdaughter about her birthday gift. My stepdaughter got upset and told my wife. My wife got angry with me because, according to her, my stepkids feel left out. They always see my children with expensive items or watch them receive expensive gifts, and she finds that unfair. I argued that they didn't receive these items from me, but their mother and her family. My children are allowed to walk with these things. She argued back that I'm contributing to buying them, that I'm a massive a-hole for making such a big financial decision without her knowledge. She yelled at me, telling me I'm treating her kids unfairly, because my ex-wife can afford to buy a car without my help, and that I could have helped buy my stepdaughter a car, and that it's unfair my daughter has 2 cars and my stepdaughter has none. She lastly told me I'm treating my stepchildren unfairly, and I'm favoring my children over hers. She finds it tasteless and inappropriate to have my children walk around with expensive items, while her kids don't get a crumb from me. I simply just told her that my son and daughter are my only obligations in life. They're my kids, and if I want to help their mom buy a gift for them, I should be able to. When it comes to my kids, I can make any financial decision I want. That is between their mother and I. It doesn't involve her. That also goes for her. It's between her and their father. She told me I'm a coward and a jerk for treating her like a side dish and not stepping up as their father figure, while knowing the situation with their dad. I told her I have it together with their mom, and it's her own responsibility to have it together with their dad. It's not my obligation to treat her kids the same as my own, in regards to expensive gifts. She told me to duck off, and we haven't spoken since. Am I the a-hole? Oh boy, you lost me at the last part. Okay, first off, you are married. Your finances are 100% your wife's business. Secondly, you are majorly an a-hole for telling her your only obligations in life are your kids. You are married and have stepkids that live with you. You sound like you are still clinging to your first marriage and family. You're the a-hole, not because of your ex getting kids fancy crap. It's not fair, but it's from their mom. What makes you the a-hole is your last paragraph. Surprise, a-hole, your stepkids are your obligation too. You took on the obligation the moment you married their mother. You're a family too. Start acting like it. You're the a-hole. Why would you marry her if you're going to treat her kids that way? Also, she's right. If your wife can just buy the car easily, why not put that money to help buy your stepdaughter one? Especially if your daughter has 2 cars at 18. They're going to be entitled for the rest of their lives. Me, female 29, and my husband, male 30, recently got married in Paris. It was a huge wedding with over 60 people attending. I've never been on good terms with my mother-in-law, and if it were my choice, wouldn't have had her at the wedding, but I put our differences aside for my husband and invited her. Everything was fine after I'd sent the invitations out, until I had a text from my mother-in-law asking if any children would be attending the wedding. I of course said yes, as I have a son, 6, from a previous relationship, who loved my husband as if he were his dad. This was a huge problem for my mother-in-law, and demanded that I hire a babysitter for my son, as he isn't even my husband's real son. My blood was boiling at this point, but I kept my cool for my husband, and explained calmly that it is my wedding, and I would like my son to be there. After some back and forth words, she finally agreed. After that one little argument, everything was great, and we had a few days to go to the wedding. It was stressful getting everyone to the airport and into hotels, but it all went smoothly enough. We all got to the hotels, and mother-in-law insisted that she would share a room with me, my husband, and my son. Both me and my husband told her that we wanted some alone time with our son before the wedding when we won't be able to pay him much attention, so mother-in-law should just share a room with my sister-in-law. She walked away angrily. After that, I thought mother-in-law would lay back on the arguing to not cause me any stress or problems for the wedding. But just a day before my wedding, she started kicking off again, saying how she should have been my maid of honor. I don't get where this came from, as she knew she wasn't the maid of honor from the start. I didn't want to argue, so I just walked away. And then finally the day of the wedding came. The ceremony went perfectly, and it was amazingly, truly the best day of my life. Until the after party, where everyone just had drinks and had fun without a care in the world. It was time for me and my husband's dance to my choice of song. We were halfway through dancing when I hear a loud booing from a person in the crowd. And of course, it was mother-in-law. She stood up and started shouting, "You have taken my boy away from me. He will never love you as much as he loved me. A boy's mom should be the only women he should ever love." I turned to look at her. She finished with, "You will never be good enough for my son." That's where I lost it, and got in her face, shouting, "You have done nothing but ruin everything for me. You ruined the days leading up to the wedding and the day of my wedding, and I will never accept you as my mother-in-law." She started to cry and ran out of church. The rest of the night was very awkward, and everyone went home early. All of my family are calling me an a-hole. My sister-in-law and husband agree with me. So tell me, did I go too far? Not the a-hole. I can't say it loud enough. This woman is a nightmare. It sounds like she is single and her son has been the man in her life for a while. But to ruin your wedding with this nonsense must have been embarrassing for your husband. Your family clearly have no idea how toxic mother-in-law has been, and I'm happy to hear your husband is on your side. Not the a-hole. If your mother-in-law's own son and daughter are agreeing with you and supporting you rather than their mom, then your family have no right to call you an a-hole for how you responded to the scandal your mother-in-law caused. Your family are being a-holes for caring for the feelings of your mother-in-law, who has tried to mess things up for you repeatedly rather than support you, the actual victim. Not the a-hole. You didn't do anything wrong. Why weren't all these people who are saying you did telling her to shut the duck up? I think your husband needs to tell her that you didn't take him away, but her behavior pushed him away. Then go no contact. My dad had me, 31 female, with my mom, and then they divorced when I was 4. Met my stepmom when I was 6, and they had my little sister when I was 9. I've always felt like I was stuck in the middle, but I've always been the closest with my dad. But all of my life, I felt like he favored my younger sister over me. Throughout my life, my dad has struggled with a drinking problem. Functioning. Never been to rehab. Quits periodically and starts back up when he wants, but is an explosive and angry drunk. And when I got married, I requested he didn't drink at my reception, and I would also limit alcohol so that everyone else wasn't getting completely plastered too. But he flat out told me that if he wasn't allowed to drink, then he wouldn't come, even to walk me down the aisle. It was heartbreaking, but I relented eventually because I really wanted my dad there. This was 6 years ago. A couple months ago, my sister got married and told my dad he wasn't allowed to drink at her reception and that he wouldn't be allowed to come at all if he did. He agreed immediately and didn't argue at all. It wasn't the first time I've seen serious disparities between how he treats us. But what is so frustrating to me is how differently we treat him. I try to take care of him when he needs me. My sister treats my dad like garbage and even went a whole 2 years without speaking to him. This was right after he divorced my stepmom 4 years ago. Not a single call, text, anything. And he was having some serious health issues during this time. And every time I would go over there and see him, he would only ask if I had talked to my sister and would beg me to call her. And I did try to convince her a few times to talk to him, but she would just shut me down every time, until finally after 2 years they started talking again. The other day I saw my sister and we got to talking, and I expressed how frustrated I was that our dad treats us differently, and I asked whether she noticed, and she said she did. She told me that our dad would always walk over me and take advantage of me until I stopped enabling him and also ended my streak of financial dependency on him. I divorced my own husband 2 years ago, and now I am a single mom, and my dad has helped me out by helping make rent when I need it, or helping me with my car payments, but he gives me crap for it every time. She claimed our dad is a user and aggressive, and when I tried to defend him, she told me that I didn't know how he really used to be because I stopped living with him when I was 15, and she was 6, and that was before his drinking got really bad. My dad isn't perfect, but I didn't think it was fair of her to badmouth him like that. So I told him what she had said, expecting that he would at least be upset. But he just told me not to rile my sister up, as if any wrong move would send her away again. I swear if that were me, he would have just tossed me aside. More context. Growing up, I would spend half the week at my mom's with her husband and his kids, and then the other half with my dad, stepmom, and sister. When I turned 15, I went to live with my mom full-time because they moved farther away, and I would no longer be able to go back and forth as easily. You're the a-hole. You are jealous that your sister has boundaries and enforces them, so your father has to treat her differently, i.e., with respect. She told me that our dad would always walk over me and take advantage of me until I stopped enabling him, and also ended my streak of financial dependency on him. She nailed it. This is not favoritism. You're the a-hole. Sounds like she is right. You gave him an ultimatum about not drinking at your wedding, and then quickly caved. She gave the same ultimatum, and he didn't argue, not because she is the favorite, but because she had obviously established clear boundaries, and he likely knew she would follow through with her threat. You were enabling his behavior, then acting shocked that he walks all over you. No a-holes, except your dad. Listen to your sister, she's telling you the truth. You did not grow up in the same house with the same man. He probably feels much more guilt about the aggressive crap you missed but hit your sister full in the face. Plus, he knows what she'll tolerate versus what you'll tolerate. A man like that knows exactly who he can push around and manipulate and who he can't. I, 24 female, have a brother who is getting married to Victoria, 25 female. Vic and I have a very good relationship. Last year, my brother proposed. Vic took the lead for all the wedding preparations because she is taking a gap year between jobs. My brother supported easily both of them and the wedding. So whenever we have questions about the wedding, she's the person we need to talk to. Important background info. I'm allergic to nuts and coconuts. I don't need an EpiPen, but I have massive diarrhea. Last time I had a reaction, I was so dehydrated I needed to go to the hospital. For the wedding day, we have a caterer planned for an only family brunch. Then it's the ceremony, and then we have a celebration with all the guests. So for the meals at the wedding, I texted 2 months in advance to Vic to ask if I would be able to eat, and told her my specific food allergies, in case she forgot. I told that if not, I would be able to bring my lunch and eat amongst everyone without any problem. It's something I do sometimes at big family gatherings, because I don't expect everyone to be extra careful every time for me. Vic told me that everything should be fine. 4 days before the wedding, I texted again to be sure, and she said that the menu does not contain any of my allergens. Wedding day. On the family brunch, I started to feel bad in my tummy. I privately asked to the chef if anything contained any nuts or coconuts, and lo and behold, the sauce for the egg contained coconut. I excused myself and went back home, 20 minutes away from the venue. After this, well, you can imagine the toilet became my best friend. I passed the next 5 hours on the toilet. I texted my brother to excuse myself, that I won't be able to come to the ceremony and I would try to come to the celebration. So around 8 hours after the brunch, I was capable to go back to the celebration. I did my wedding toast to my brother, and after, Vic came to me and asked why I was absent from the ceremony. I told her that the brunch did contain coconut, and I passed the whole day on the toilet, that I'm glad I was able to come back to the ceremony and did not need to go to the hospital. She then left back to my brother and spent the rest of the evening talking to guests. The next day, I received many texts from my brother, saying I was an a-hole for telling her during her wedding day that she was responsible of me being sick, and that I should have told some lies to make her happy. He told me she cried the whole wedding night about this. Since then, I've received texts from family members, friends, bridesmaids, who called me an a-hole for ruining her wedding night. I'm starting to believe I was an a-hole and should have said to her a false reason explaining my absence during the ceremony because it ruined her evening. So, am I the a-hole? Should I have lied to her? It was important to let her know the truth. If she had caterers who promised not to use an ingredient, and they did, she needs to figure out why this happened and maybe get something credited back. Someone could have died. Her emotions were aimed at the wrong person, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Her reaction is not your responsibility, unless you told her directly or passively that it was her fault. Not the a-hole. She couldn't be bothered to find out what was in the brunch foods or to pass your food sensitivity information on to the caterers. If you had been severely allergic, that would have meant an ambulance at the brunch. This is entirely on her. If she cried about it, that should be guilt for her earlier lies. I have an older brother. Call him Mark. Mark was a solid older brother, and he did all he could to look out for me. However, one of the patterns that emerged is that he still treats me like a kid, especially when it came to women. My brother is the better looking, more attractive brother, and when I didn't have a girlfriend, he would be hard on me, telling me I need to hit the gym, I need to not dress like a dad. Mark and I used to have a really good relationship, but we lost our closeness after I left for medical school. I was busy, and it was really difficult and expensive for flights. After I completed my residency, I moved back closer to my family and friends, where I met my now fiancé. After I introduced my brother to her, him and his wife, they gently were trying to get me to break up. They were like, "Oh, you guys don't seem compatible. She is older and has a family already. You should find someone more compatible." I was like, "You don't even know our dynamic yet. How can you say that?" And I really tried to get my brother and his wife to see my fiancé as a whole person. And again, initially they were nice and were like, "We have our reservations, but okay, if it makes you happy." Then one night, my brother was over at our family's house, and he was really drunk. And he starts going off. My fiancé was not present and at the time was just my girlfriend. And starts going off on how my fiancé is with me for my money. That I'm just being used for a paycheck. And that when we have kids together, to not be surprised if the baby comes out with a tan. I was like, "Mark, stop." And he just kept pressing on with his insensitive comments. Well, now that me and my fiancé are engaged, I did not invite my brother to the wedding. I don't want to deal with him making ignorant comments. My family is telling me to forgive him. My fiancé says that she really doesn't want him to come, but if I invite him, she understands. I understand he was drunk, but I feel that he really crossed the line, and this is fair. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Alcohol tends to be like a truth serum. He said what he thought, even if he wouldn't say it when sober. He's an R, and so is his wife. Have an enjoyable wedding without worrying if they would misbehave, and I'm sure they'd be making comments to the other guests. You can forgive, not forget, and still not invite them to the wedding. A wedding is about celebrating the love you have for each other. Anyone who doesn't support that has no place there. Unless you have gotten a very sincere apology and brother has shown his actions match that, you have every right to refuse him, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Don't invite him, to be honest. If your family is asking you to forgive him, and he's not the one asking for forgiveness, there's literally no point. He hasn't changed.